Imagine if you had a clever device, an app, a program of some sort that could tell you how you're doing with your career, how you're doing with your development of your skills, a sort of careerometer or skillometer. I think it'd be absolutely amazing to have such a thing. I think it would transform the whole human resources industry. And last June, the Economist came together with the Lumina Foundation to create something called the Quantified Work Challenge, which we launched on InnoCentive.com. We had hundreds upon hundreds of applicants to this process, and I'm going to first start off by asking the group of judges who winnowed these down to the three people we're going to see today. And they were Robert Doerr, the Commissioner of the Human Resources Administration of New York City, Diane Ashley, the Chief Diversity Officer at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, Yvonne Surovich, VP of Global Talent and Learning at ADP, and Jamie Mirisotis, President and CEO of the Lumina Foundation. I'd like to thank them all on behalf of The Economist for having selected these semi-finalists today. Now we're going to take these three semi-finalists and whittle them down to a winner. And to help us do this, we have the following judges who are just about to come on stage. Jamie Mirisotis of the Lumina Foundation. Thank you for everything. Professor Thomas Malone, who's been doing sterling work already. Tom, hi. Thank you. And Laszlo Bloch, the Senior VP for People Operations at Google. How do you do? I wanted to start off just by asking you, what are you looking for when you're looking for this skillometer, this careerometer? What sort of technology are you looking for?
You know, I think the main goal here is to give individuals an opportunity in their career, in their development, to actually be able to track those skills, those capacities that they have, either through their education or through their work experience, to help them advance. And if they can have a better understanding of their own potential and how they're advancing compared to their own potential, this has big implications for HR departments and for the hiring managers.
Huge.
So from our vantage point at Lumina Foundation, we believe American society needs a lot more talent. We think we have a significant talent deficit in this country, and so finding ways in which we can advance that talent in order to power our economy and strengthen our democracy is very important in terms of our work, and we're happy to play a part in this.
Great. Well, I'm going to explain the sort of the X Factor process. What's going to happen is each semi-finalist is going to have 3 minutes in order to present his idea to you all. And we're going to enforce that very strictly. If anybody goes over, I'll press a button and they'll disappear. After the presentations, the judges will have 5 minutes in which they'll confer and in which we'll ask questions and answer those questions. First of all, I'd like to introduce the first presenter, Chris Gray, the founder of Track Ahead, which is a game that aims to help players understand their own strengths and identifies their weaknesses and areas that they need to develop. Chris. Good luck.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here. Like you said, I'm Chris Gray, founder of Track Ahead. And Track Ahead wants to fundamentally change the college career development and recruitment model by creating a comprehensive career discovery and development platform. We'll use game mechanics to add points, levels, and rewards to motivate student career development activity. And then we'll take that activity to build quantitative and qualitative big data inputs and predictive models to match the students to the employers that best fit their personal preferences and skill sets. Simultaneously, we'll use the same platform and data the employers will to match to the students that best fit their corporate culture and job qualifications. And the employers will also create rewards to motivate the students to learn more about their company and their culture while they create a pipeline of emerging talent. So now the best games play on the fundamental human need for recognition, competition, and achievement. So Track Ahead students get increased visibility and recognition by employers by more activity on the platform. We can create comparison reports to let the students compare themselves to peers And achievement comes through career success in this real-life game. Now, we think when we build the Track Ahead platform, 3 really exciting things can happen. One, once you've empowered the individual with the information and data to be able to find the right career and employer, then recruitment becomes a true two-way street and not a one-way street. 2, the virtual communication tools and game mechanics create ongoing and sustained interaction between the individual and the employer. So recruitment stops being a finite process that starts and stops in the active job search. And 3, when these things happen, then the individual can worry less on the recruitment process and more on career and self-development. Now, Track Ahead, through business and education partnerships, can incorporate massive open online courses and other virtual education environments in order to move the individual from skill identification to skill development. And we can capture those in certifications and badges. So we believe we can fundamentally change the college career development and recruitment model by taking the empowered, quantified career individual and moving them through a process that emphasizes career activity and skill sets, making them more proactive and less reactive, and giving them choice, not chance, for success. And that's the opportunity with Track Ahead.
Thank you very much.
Well, so one of the concept sounds terrific, and something that employers would obviously be interested in. One of the challenges with this kind of system is there's a chicken and egg problem in that you need a bunch of users to attract employers, and you need a bunch of employers to attract students to participate, or maybe you don't. How do you think about getting the initial critical mass either of employers or of students that you need?
Well, a couple ways. From the employer standpoint, we want to invite some employers to sponsor and be with us in development, to sort of kick the tires as the interface is built and make sure the functionality at launch is exactly what they want. So we can encourage that, and simultaneously through that process, which several months to build, we can be moving toward education partnerships to sort of let the schools know what opportunities there are in the platform. It's basically the student. The student's going to vote for, this is compelling to me, but obviously the data can be useful to the school. And so we think, we can build up excitement by, the early adopters that help with development, and that's going to create excitement on the education and student side.
Thank you.
So I also agree, it sounds like a great idea. The question I'm pondering is sort of how would it actually work? And I think it would help if you could give us a couple of examples of what's a skill you could reasonably assess in a small amount of time, and what would you do to address building that skill, et cetera. So you said in general you want to find out what skills they have and don't have, and how to improve them, and what employers want, but
Sure.
It's not obvious how to characterize a skill package. So I'd be interested in an example.
Well, certainly in the beginning, we're talking more on skill identification. So it's only through partnerships, if we're incorporating certain virtual education environments or learning environments, and those are incorporated in, then those can be, through the partner, we can identify specifically what skills, activities they're getting from those. So what we want to do at first for the student is to go through and let them understand themselves through career discovery. What are their own strengths? What careers are they going to be good at? And they're building up points while they're doing that. And so to take that through as an example, so the student is now seeing, I got to build up points. I've now figured out the career I'm looking at. So now it's time to take a look at the employers I want to track. So now I'm seeing, well, how many points do I want to get? What levels do I want to get certain rewards? So as an employer, you've created rewards, and those rewards might be anything from just a virtual video conference, or a visit on campus where you get to get in front of senior management. So they're looking to build up those points, and activity itself actually is a metric, right? So how much activity, how much time they're putting in the career will be things that we can assess right out of the gate.
If I can just interrupt. So the question I'm trying to get at is, suppose Google is one of your employees, and they say, we need people who know C++ programming language, who are self-motivated and good team players. Maybe the first one I can see how you're going to assess. What are you going to do about the second two?
Well, I think some of those soft skills, some of the ways to get the soft skills are going to be self-reported, right? So from an algorithm standpoint, we've got to lower the value of self-reported skills. But again, if we're partnered with, say, volunteer organization, and they're doing volunteer work with specific skills connected with that, or they're involved in activities on campus where we can agree on what kind of general soft skills you're getting from that. If you're the head of a student organization, we can make certain inferences to some of those. And to your point, it's particularly in the beginning, those are going to be very, they're not going to be hardened around the edges, but we can certainly take certain activities and figure out what kind of skills go with those.
Thank you for your excellent idea, Chris. Let me just press a little further on this point. We've only got a little bit of time left, but what skills aren't you going to count in this tracker? In other words, I'm trying to figure out what the level of granularity is here in terms of what kind of skills we're talking about, given that they're self-reported.
Well, certainly self-reported skills. Anyone can put a self-reported skill on there. I think you can even create colleagues or teachers or coaches or former employers to come in there and rate and rank and sort of validate some of those. But hopefully, and this is where some of the education partnerships can help, if the schools can help in identifying what some of the student activities are, that we can start getting, kind of quantifying skills, we can sort of lead to that. I think in a lot of cases, it's the activity itself, how much time they're putting into learning their career, what they're doing. There's a lot of information we're going to be able to get out of that kind of thing early on while we build up to the others. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, finally, we do have Paul Duane, who's created a method for automatic skills assessment based on social network analysis. Thank you.
Hi. Hi again. So today I'm going to talk to you about a novel technology for talent management using network analysis and machine learning. And it's a method that can automatically, 1, assess employees' skill levels, 2, provide them with highly personalized learning recommendations, and 3, provide managers a high-level view they never really had before of their company's learning and collaboration dynamics. And all that while being industry agnostic and without requiring any change in their employees' workflow. So companies have been using performance reviews or self-assessment surveys, methods that are biased, time-consuming, that are always great for identifying skill gaps, and that no one really wants to do anyway. So we need something better, automatic, but that's a really hard task, right? But here's the thing. Every day, employees going about their day interact electronically. They send emails, chat with coworkers, collaborate and share documents. So in other words, they transfer knowledge. And moreover, who they decide to talk to and how they talk to them is not innocent because they know who they can trust and which topics, right? So it turns out that just looking at these interactions, we can already figure out who possesses what skills and what is the professional reputation about their skills within the context of the company. And this data is already there. So what we do is use machine learning and natural language processing techniques to process these logs and infer from them, what are the knowledge transfers, and then construct this graph of all the knowledge transfers within the company. And so once we have this graph, we can use it pretty much the same way as Google uses PageRank. We can tell that a website like Wikipedia is important because many other websites, including important ones, link to it, right? So in the same way, we could tell that, say, Bozo the clown is a great juggler because all the other clowns tend to attend his juggling meetings, or because another reputed juggler always seems to be paying a lot of attention whenever Bozo talks about hand-to-eye coordination. And then the second thing is, by having this graph, right, we already have a straightforward way to find out what people should learn, right? Because what are the skills someone needs the most? Well, it's simply the skills that he or people similar to him have asked other people about. So if Bozo, has been asking a lot of questions about how to fit into small cars, then we know how to recommend him. We should simply recommend him, exercises to improve his flexibility, right? And the third thing is that, well, because of this graph representation, then it's very easy to see how a company could use, this to, see who are the groups that collaborate the best, who have the best synergy, who are the high potential individuals, and so on. And that's how we solve this talent management problem, by harnessing the collective intelligence that the employees have about themselves. All right, thank you.
Thank you. 5 minutes of questions. Questions now.
So give me an example of a highly personalized learning recommendation that would come out of the system. What kind of recommendations would you be making?
So Bozo the clown, right? And
yeah.
this flexibility exercise. Or to take a less egregious example, right? If you're a financial analyst and say you're often asking people to check your queries, for example, then we can pick up on that. We can say, okay, you should maybe take some class on SQL, and here's a nice Coursera class to do that, right? So that's one.
So how would you get that?
Um,
How would you know that Bozo needs to learn SQL? For instance.
Right. So based on natural language processing, we can look at their emails, right, the interactions, and see that he's been asking a lot about people. No, he's been asking, hey, Ted, can you review my query? And based on that, we can automatically assign a keyword to that and say, OK, he's talking about databases. Right.
So if he's been asking questions about SQL, you know that he knows enough about it to ask questions. What if there's something he doesn't even know that he doesn't know? And he would never have asked any questions about it.
And that's a beautiful thing, is that because it's a graph, right, we can see, we can compare him to other people who are similar to him. And then maybe these people who have asked questions about these skills. And then we can recommend these back to Bob, or whatever he's called.
So I love the Bozo the clown example, because I think we've all worked with Bozos. So that's great. How are the other clowns going to feel about their email being monitored? And
So, right. Well, you're the Google person, right? So
we don't do that. That's exactly why we don't.
So, all right. So you're talking about privacy, right?
Yeah.
So I have two answers to that. So one is privacy by design, right? We don't read emails pretty much the same way as Google does not read the emails. We parse them and then extract the keywords to figure out, what skills they're relevant. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is transparency. So we respect people's data, and we believe that people should have the option to, companies should, can decide to give their employees the option to either opt out of the program and anonymize their, data, or just, make all the data available to them. So it's transparency, right? So if people can just check the profile and just censor stuff if they don't like it, then we can help them, gain confidence in the system.
Thank you.
Don't be evil, right?
Yeah. That's right. That's right.
So if I can just probe a little more on
Yes.
how it actually works. You gave us two examples of how you'd know somebody's missing a skill.
Yes.
One is if they've asked questions about that skill in the past. The other is people in similar positions. Maybe you mean social network position, or maybe you mean job position.
A little bit both.
Both, you said?
Yeah.
So if other people in similar situations have asked questions about a skill that this person hasn't even asked about,
Exactly.
you can at least raise the question of whether they already know it and therefore don't need to ask, or maybe they don't even know that they don't know it. So maybe that. But what are the other kind of techniques you use with the social network analysis to identify missing skills besides those two?
Also, just go back to that. The cost of giving a false recommendation is pretty low, so we can just throw it at them, so it's fine. So some of the possibilities would be, going more in depth and looking at the job title and see the people they talk to. So, for example, the people who are step up in the management chain, right? What skills do they have? So that way you can see, what skills should you learn if you want to, to take their job?
And how do you know what skills they have?
Well, same thing. They're also part of the graph.
But if I'm your manager and I send email, how do you know what skills I have?
Because you are also part of the graph. So we have the same analysis for you. We also know that you've been asking a lot about financial forecasting, about global trends, econometrics, I don't know.
Okay. But I had to use words in my email that you would classify as skills.
Yes.
That's
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you very
Thank
much
you very
indeed. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Well done.
Thank you.
Now, third, we have Peter Hohenbein, who's the creator of Waterman, which suggests learning activities based on an employee's professional objectives. Peter.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Peter Hohenbein, and today I want to talk to you about an idea called Waterman. Waterman is the code name for a web mobile application that motivates professionals to develop skills that enhance their careers. And what it does is that it combines a development planning process, a learning activities distribution system, and social data about the usefulness and value of learning activities to guide a person's entire career, even if they change employers. Now, the basic recipe of any quantified self-application is goals, activities, and feedback. And what I want to do is tell you all a story about Jill, a young professional early in her career, to illustrate Waterman's usefulness. So for goals, Waterman helps Jill define development objectives. And then those objectives are based upon the needs of her organization and her career aspirations. For activities, Waterman analyzes those objectives and suggests activities that match Jill's situation. So for example, if Jill wants to improve her negotiation skills, Waterman might suggest a variety of activities. Jill could read a book, take a course, shadow another employee, write an article. Virtually anything could be a learning activity. And Waterman even enables Jill to design, develop, and publish her own learning activities. So when Jill selects an activity, Waterman provides immediate access to the activity. Or if it's more of a traditional one, like instructor-led training, facilitates registration. After Jill completes an activity, she rates the usefulness and then writes a brief reflection. Waterman also collects any performance data associated with that activity, such as test scores. And Jill can also ask her manager, her mentors, and her peers to confirm her rating, because the more useful a community rates an activity, the greater its value. For feedback, Waterman analyzes all of that objective and subjective data. It calculates a value score, and it presents Jill a dashboard with motivational feedback, including peer comparisons. Waterman also regularly notifies Jill of other learning activities in which she may be interested that would help her achieve her objectives. So why is Waterman a great idea for young professionals like Jill? Well, first, Waterman is like your social security number. Your Waterman skills portfolio stays with you for your entire life. Second, Waterman removes distribution barriers. It makes it easier to access activities, and it enables you to design, develop, and publish your own activities. And third, Waterman continually learns how a community values certain types of activities, guiding what activities it suggests, and how it scores those activities. So, what do you think?
So Jill's going to need a lot of free time to do all the work you're talking about here, isn't she? This sounds like a lot of activity on her part, setting the goals, being able to do all the input that you're talking about, the analysis. I mean, what's the time factor here associated with this?
So Jill's activities are no different than what Jill would do in her organization now, because the idea of performance planning, of identifying what your objectives are for your performance, as well as what your objectives are for your own personal development, is something that companies do day in and day out. Often it's a yearly process that happens at about the same time as performance reviews and those types of things. And so those same activities would would still be going on. The real difference there is that we take the philosophy that Jill's objectives are employee-owned and manager-supported, okay? So that she owns the activities, and she can determine how they fit with the manager supporting. And what Waterman does additionally is integrates the input of mentors and other peers, even peers who might not work at Jill's company.
So just to be sure I understand the idea, what I think you're describing is a big database of skills, presumably some kind of hierarchical structure of skills plus activities to help you develop each of those skills. And on that structure, you let different people have profiles of what they maybe already have or what they want to have and how well they're doing in achieving that. Is that basically right?
No, that's not necessarily it. What we see Waterman as being is it's a database of learning activities which either exist in other places, or perhaps it's like Learning Tree where they have instructor-led courses, but we have the connections to those particular activities. The analysis that Waterman does is, again, if a employee defines a development objective. So for example, Jill wants to improve her negotiations, or Jill wants to be able to negotiate better contracts for her company, okay? In that set of keywords, we can parse off what some of the interesting elements are: contracts, negotiation, and use those as tools to be able to find, almost like as Google does, to find and match learning activities that match those. We don't hold skills, right? Okay. Think of it as a distribution platform that people come to us, they define objectives, okay? We take those objectives and then match them to a database of learning activities, okay, and then connect the learner to those activities. And if the learner can't find anything, then they can create their own, which is what my students do at Indiana University.
So it's mostly the learning activities then,
exactly,
not the skills. Okay.
Yep.
How do you know at launch what learning activities to recommend? And specifically what I mean by that is, I think you make a profound point that says, you know, it's fine what somebody thinks of a course, right? They write the evaluation and they liked it or they didn't like it, whatever. What really matters is, does their behavior change eventually?
Correct.
And so you're going to be getting peer feedback and mentor feedback over time. But how do you know at the beginning what courses or instructions or self-developed mentorship programs or what have you?
So really that's a question about market segmentation, and the training industry has a whole variety of things if you want to learn oil exploration or management skills or IT skills. And for Waterman, what we would focus on first is probably more in that management and IT skills area. The market is pretty well known with providers providing certain types of training and materials. There's a good set of books and other publications that are out there. And so the knowledge base is pretty well defined. And so that would be sort of our entry to move into that particular area, because like anything, you have to focus on what your target market is. And so that would be one of the characteristics that define our target market.
But if I could just push for understanding a little more.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to take a management course, and I'll make this up a little bit because I don't know who's got what online right now in every area, but you know, would you recommend they take an MIT online management course from the business school,
Yes.
or something that, or something that Coursera does, or University of Phoenix, or the Learning Annex?
Right. So to make a recommendation, Waterman isn't really based on our values. It's based on the idea of Tom's idea of collective intelligence. It's the community who decides. So for example, you decide to take Learning Tree's course on negotiation skills, okay? Or it's recommended to you. Well, in the recommendation of activities, it's going to come ranked, and you might want to pick an activity that you know one of your peers did, or one that's been ranked high as being very useful. A lot of the research I've been doing in learning activities looks at this concept of usefulness, right? And so the selection of the activities is really dependent on the community sort of pushing the learner into some areas. And it's not Waterman as a company saying, you need to go do this. We're smart enough to, and I know one of Jamie's real hot buttons is on the idea of quality learning. And we might add some attributes to certain types of learning activities. So for example, a book is just presentation. A instructor-led course is presentation, practice, and feedback. We know from instructional design science that if I have presentation, practice, and feedback, most likely it's a higher quality course. And like with Jamie's mission in his company to be able to, you know, get people to do university degrees or certifications or certificates, if, for example, Tom's MIT programs come along with a certificate, that would elevate this idea of a value score, right? And so as learners take those courses, they're aiming to shoot their value score up in terms of the value of that learning activity. And the peer group basically looks back and goes, you know, that was really smart. And now that value score goes up because if you like what I did, now you go take that course on negotiation, and I followed Jill. Now I have this whole chain of people who are basically crowdsourcing that particular learning experience. And it's people voting with their feet rather than some organization saying, yeah, I think Learning Annex is best for this or MIT is best for this. It depends on the person's own situation.
Peter, thank you very, very much. We're now going to get into a huddle, or the judges are going to get into the huddle.
Thank you
That's
very
very kind of you. Thank you. Thank you.
I use technology all the time. It's critical to my role in understanding the talent, in understanding the development needs of our associates worldwide, and it's also very critical for me that it's integrated so that it integrates with our performance processes, our development processes, and is fully aligned with what the business strategy really calls for in terms of the needs of the associates.
We're always in the business of changing and improving and having workers, both for our agency and for our customers in the marketplace, get the most out of their employees. And often that requires training and assessing their abilities and finding ways to make them more productive.
So if I had a way to have technology help me solve my job and make my job easier, I think the biggest thing would be able to explain people. That's the real issue, because as a Chief Diversity Officer, you really want to ensure that you understand people fundamentally. You understand that people come from different backgrounds, different genders, different sexual orientation. And, you know, I think that there is an opportunity in terms of our technology to be able to, and I would hope, if I could, have technology really be able to address the different fundamental issues around culture.
When you think about career development, you're developing for the future. Without a workforce plan that enables that strategy connected to the business, you really don't know what skills you need for the future. And so therefore, you know, the challenge is really to understand what those critical skills might be so that you can develop them, both from a learning perspective as well as an experience perspective.
I think that organizations that really want to continue to not only survive but thrive need to really think about how they can incorporate technology education and also to current events, being contemporaneous into their organizations. You know, it's not enough to put persons in a classroom once a year and say, okay, here's what's going to happen and here's what it is. I think if we were really to try to do it in a way that's going to have some resiliency, it's to be able to make it a dynamic that's part of the daily credo within the organization.
An agency like ours is constantly trying to make our employees be ready for the next step in their career, because we want to grow from within and promote from within. So to the extent that we're offering them on a day-to-day basis, every day, opportunities to improve their skills, we're helping ourselves and we're helping them.
I think that the traits that cutting-edge technologies need to have is one, a really strong understanding. When you're building an algorithm for a technology, you want to ensure that that algorithm is going to be built in a way that's going to be inclusive and not exclusive. I think it's really not enough to simply say that we're going to build this algorithm that's going to teach you how to do skills without having contextual understanding of what's behind the skills. The other things you need to have in terms of building cutting-edge technology around these kinds of traits is to really be clear. It's hard, you know, it sounds obvious, but you really want individuals to be clear about what does define success.
When I think about employees of the future, they're going to want to learn in a way that's different than you know, kind of current state. So I was really looking for innovation in terms of how do you pull sort of that interest out of that employee. And I was really looking for something that was, you know, kind of out of the box thinking in terms of creativity as it relates to solving for some of these needs. And I certainly saw some of those solutions that were presented.
These various proposals are potential things that me as a Chief Executive Officer of a large public agency might purchase from a provider for either my employees or for the people I serve who are clients of our agency. And I was looking for an idea or something that I thought would really help me. And so when I was assessing them, I was trying to pick the one that practically I would actually want to go back and tell my human resources director, you should buy that product.
We do have a winner. We're just working out. Jamie's going to announce it in a moment, who will then be brought on stage.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. So first, let me say that we were really thrilled with all three submissions. They each have a lot of ingenuity and ideas behind them. And so before we announce the winner, maybe one more round of applause for Chris, Paul, and Peter. And thank you to Laszlo and Tom for a healthy debate to get to our choice. The winner of the Economist Lumina Challenge is the Method for Automatic Skills Assessment Based on Social Network Analysis, Paul Duan. Congratulations. Thank you. Congratulations. Congratulations, Russ. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
And now I think we'd like this check to be brought on stage. Here it is. It's a rather large check. Excellent. This is David Cox. That's a lot of money. Very good. Thank you all.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you all very much indeed. Thank you.